Welcome back to Interactive Wrestling Radio. Joining me on the Newsmaker line right now is a Glow original from the original Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. She was Tiffany Mellon. You might know her better as Tiffany Million. I don't know how I should address you, but I'm going to call you Tiffany Mellon since this is a wrestling interview. How are you doing today, Miss Mellon?
Either way, it's Tiffany. It works for me. Pleasure to
Tiffany
speak
works.
with you.
That works. Well, it's a pleasure to have you on. We've been talking about doing this for a little while now, and I'm glad we finally had the chance to sit down and do it. So let's do the usual questions, and we'll try to go a couple of different routes on this one, if that's okay with you. First things first, how did you end up getting involved in this wacky world of professional wrestling?
Well, I've told this story many times, and I'll tell it again. I'll try to give you maybe the Reader's Digest condensed version. But I was at my agent's office. We were going over the available roles that he could send me out for. And on the wall behind him was a notice, and it said Glow auditions. I had recently become a fan of the show, just a few months before. So I saw this notice and I said, Michael, send me out on that audition. And he kind of looked at me funny because he knew that I was not a wrestler and I was not athletic. Mm-hmm. And he was like, you want to go out for that? And I go, yes, I love that show. He goes, what do you love about it? And I was like, well, it's just these really hot girls with these skimpy costumes, going up the crack of their ass and their tits are almost, popping out. And they got this big hair and this crazy makeup and these comedy sketches. He goes, okay, all right, I'll send you. And he was flaming queer. So, hey, I'll send you, sweetie. So, he sent me out to meet with Matt Cimber, who was, of course, our director and producer. And for those of you who do not know, Matt Cimber was married to Jane Mansfield when she was killed, and they had a son together.
I did not know that. Oh my God.
So they had a son together named Tony Cimber, and Tony Cimber was our assistant director at Glow. So Glow was actually run by Jane Mansfield's husband and son.
Wow.
And then Tony, of course, has a half sister who stars on CSI. What's her name? Oh gosh, everybody knows her. Jane Mansfield's daughter.
Oh, I'm not going to get
Mariska Hargitay. Mariska Hargitay.
You got there.
Mariska Hargitay. So Mariska is Tony's half sister. Yeah.
That's amazing. And like you said, wrestling, I've heard you say in other interviews, it's wrestling, but it's not really wrestling. It was a total variety show of sorts, with wrestling kind of being the subplot of everything. But I loved Glow. I was a kid at the time, I'm 44 now, so I was, when you were on there, I was about 7 or 8 years old.
That was about our demographic. Yes. Oh, let me finish the story about how I got cast. So then my agent sent me out to meet with Matt Cimber, and Matt was playing tennis at his tennis club in West LA, a town called Agoura. Mm-hmm. And so I met him out there, and we talked for probably about 90 minutes, 2 hours. And he cast me immediately. So I had to pack it up and move to Vegas like all the other girls, where they put us through some rigorous training. It was kind of a weeding out process. A couple hundred girls showed up, and we ended up with about maybe 5-6 dozen at the end.
Wow.
It was like the survival of the fittest.
Yeah, those that you have to be tough to do it. I mean, we joke about it, but it is still wrestling, and there's a lot of stuff that goes involved in it. That was kind of my next question. I've interviewed a number of the Glow girls, and the most famous of them being Hollywood, probably your biggest rival, if I was to say.
Although in real life, we are the best of friends.
One of the sweetest people I know. I don't think
she is.
So much about life I don't think we agree on, but there's so much that we can get along and chat with, and I always love when I see the message pop up from her. She always brings a smile to my face, and still gorgeous lady too, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Anyway, she talked about the training. Hers was a little different because she was in there from the first season. What was the training like, learning to do the moves that you guys learned to do before you were allowed to go on Glow TV?
So they put us up. All the girls that made it past the initial weeding out process, they put us up in these really like flea bag apartments in Vegas, down the street from the warehouse where we shot Glow and where we trained and everything. Because the first two season girls worked out of the Riviera Hotel, and then apparently they wore out their welcome there. So when they got to seasons 3 and 4, Glow girls were not allowed back in the Riviera Hotel. So they had rented this, I think it was like an old warehouse store. Like, I know Costco didn't exist at the time, but it was some old warehouse store that had closed down, and it was close to these apartments where they put us up. And the building was filthy, disgusting. The plumbing was always broken and leaking. There was like wet toilet paper and poop and pee all over the bathroom floor. There was no heating, no cooling. So it was either freezing cold or really hot. And so we had to go down there. I think it was 5 days a week. And we trained all day long in the ring. And our trainer was Mondo Guerrero. And also Ninochka trained us. So, yeah, we would be down there from like 8 in the morning until 12, and we would break for like an hour for lunch, and then we would be there from like 1 to 5, and then we had another hour break, and then we had to go to the Glow House, which was in downtown Vegas, I think off Tropicana, and rehearse our sketches and our raps and all that type of thing. So they were very long days. And during training, this went on 5 or 6 days a week, every day. I know we always had Sundays off. And then when we were shooting, we would work Monday through Friday, tape on Saturday, and have Sunday off.
Very cool. Now, in the physical aspect of it, do you feel that the training that they gave you prepared you for what you guys wanted to do? Or do you think that a lot of it was learning it on the job as well?
Yeah, a lot of it was learning on the job. I mean, they taught us the basics, and there was a lot of girls to teach, and you had just Mondo and Ninochka. So, you know, you can only do so much one-on-one. So a lot of it was us learning the moves by observing Mondo and Ninochka and some of the girls that they would demonstrate the moves, and then practicing with each other. And, 3 months, I believe we were in training for 3 months. So to go from 0 to 60 in 3 months, from knowing nothing about wrestling to being a quote unquote wrestler on a nationally syndicated television show, that is a very short time frame. Yes, and there were a lot of injuries, and a lot of the girls didn't make it to taping, or they might have taped 1 or 2 shows, got injured, and got sent home.
And if they got sent home, did they ever get called back, or because of the filming, was it just one and done kind of thing?
Well, the majority of them, as I recall, the injuries were severe enough that they could not come back.
Oh my God.
So like Jailbait, Queenie, I'm trying to remember some of the other girls. I know that Evangelina got injured. But yeah, a lot of these characters might have taped 1 show, if even. Some of them just went on the road and did the live shows, and then would get hurt and get sent home. So,
oh man. Well, you were very much a part of the show, because you were almost always the first segment. You came on there.
I always was. I was the first person you saw seasons 3 and 4 before the wraps doing that stupid freaking comedy sketch, Tiffany's Glow Gossip, with that, hi everybody, Tiffany Mellon here with all the latest Glow Gossip. Ta-ta now.
Well, that brought back some memories. I was going to ask you called it stupid just then. Did you enjoy doing those kind of dad jokes and things like that?
Oh, they were fun. Yeah, they were fun. They were so corny. They were so corny, but they were fun. And it was a silly, stupid little sketch, but I'm grateful that I got it because, aside from Hollywood, I'm probably one of the most well-known characters on the show. So I was very fortunate to get, that slot in the show. Absolutely.
And they paired you with Roxy pretty much right away, and you were off to the races. How did you enjoy working with her?
Oh, she and I are still friends to this day. I just adore Tracy. I was so happy that they paired us up because we really clicked and we bounced off each other really well. And we were the best of friends. We used to hang out outside of the show, and we would, on break, we would go to Los Angeles together and hang out, in LA. And we'd go to clubs together, go shopping together, just like our characters. But I just adore her. And like I said, we're still friends to this day.
Very cool. And I heard you talk about this match in another interview that you did. I always think of the Seinfeld episode whenever I try to phrase the question, but the battle for the butler. And it was yourself, Hollywood, and MTV, I believe. Had that match. That was one of the more memorable matches in the history of Glow. How does that rank as your favorites of what you did in your career?
Well, the idea of having a butler was my own. So the guy that played our butler was actually our props guy. And I don't remember how I came up with the idea, but I came up with the idea to have a butler, and I wanted to name him Jeeves. And so I asked Matt Cimber about it, and he thought that was a great idea. And he said, well, who are we going to get to play it? And I said, well, how about so-and-so over there that makes our props? And he looked up at us like, huh? Well, you want me to do what? But, he did a great job. He played a great butler. And so, Steve Blance had a really good time, playing with the whole butler idea. And he came up with this idea for the battle for Jeeves. And I actually have snapshots that were taken backstage before and after that match right here in my photo albums. And those photos will be in my upcoming book. I have a bunch of behind the scenes photos from Glow that have never been seen by the public.
Well, you mentioned Hollywood a few moments ago. She just released her book. I have it. It's a great read. And you just kind of let the cat out of the bag. You're working on a book as well?
Yeah, actually, mine is going to be 3 separate books because I have 3 separate careers, and there's just no way that the publisher said there's no way that we could get everything in one book. So there will be the first volume will focus on my early life in the Glow years. The second volume will be the adult career version. And then the third one will be my reality TV / bounty hunter / private investigator and everything thereafter.
Beautiful. Well, I look forward to checking those books out. One of the funniest people from Glow, especially on Facebook, if you follow her now, is Beastie. And I know you worked with Beastie quite a bit. What was your thoughts on working with Beastie?
She was great to work with as far as a wrestler. I mean, very sturdy, very, very strong, could definitely support my weight. We did the pile driver together a couple times, and there's very few people that I would trust to do a pile driver with, and she was one of them. I believe Noelle Rose, Major Tanya, she and I also did a pile driver, and I think those were the only 2 that I ever did it with. So I trusted Beastie, and it came off really well. I know that they replayed that over and over and over.
Yep, you're right. That's true.
Look at Tiffany's neck.
And then one of your trainers was Nanuchka, and she was somebody that you did some crazy spots with as well. Was it good to finally get to work with your trainer, and did you feel that maybe you showed her, hey, look how well you trained me?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, one of my favorite, if not my favorite matches was with Nanuchka because there's I think we did 2 matches together, solo matches, just the 2 of us. She got me up in the turnbuckle on the second turnbuckle, and we did a superplex from the second rope. And so when we were in rehearsal for that match, Matt Cimber said, hell no, that is too dangerous. You guys don't do that. You do it either from the first rope or from the ground. And so he told us not to do it. So when it came time to tape the show, we got in the first turnbuckle, and she got me in the corner, and she whispered in my ear, she goes, want to go for it? I go, let's do it. Because we knew there was nothing they could do because the cameras were rolling and the audience was there. What are they going to do? Stop taping?
Nobody's going to come out screaming cut. So yeah, you got to go.
That's right. So she got me up in the second turnbuckle, and we went for it, and it went off really well without a hitch. It looked great. It was the only time it's ever been done in Glow. And, of course we were we were chided after, the show that night when they get the girls together and we go over how it went. I mean, he let us have it, but I knew he was happy that he got that. I know Matt was happy.
Very cool. Just thinking about it out loud, back in like 88, 89, when all this was happening, did you think that, 30 plus years later, you'd still be talking about it with people and that people would still be interested in what was happening with you guys? Did you know that that was going to become such a big part of your life?
Well, I didn't know. And of course, we had no idea that the internet was going to happen and that the internet would keep all of these things alive and create all of these groups and subgroups and fan clubs and, be able to, people can contact us directly. And I mean, it's all thanks to the internet, that this happened. Who could have anticipated that, really? Absolutely.
What is the legacy for Glow? What do you think people should look back on it? Because if you listen to some of the wrestling purists, like your Jim Cornettes and guys like that, they kind of are poo-pooing it. They kind of, it was whatever it was. And they use the word camp a lot. But there's a lot of people that meant a lot to them. Glow meant a lot to them. I know to the performers themselves, Glow meant a lot to them. What is the legacy of Glow?
Well, Glow is a groundbreaking show. Mm-hmm. It was, I really feel that Glow paved the way for a lot of other shows that came after it. We were groundbreakers. What else can I say? I don't claim to be a real wrestler, quote unquote, real wrestler. And I don't think that really anybody who was on Glow would claim that Glow was a show about real wrestling, because it wasn't. I mean, we pulled a lot of real wrestling moves. Of course, we didn't pull them as well as, the highly trained, highly skilled female wrestlers of the day. But that's not what the show was about. Mm-hmm. Wrestling was more the backdrop of the show. It was a character-driven show. It was very campy. It had a lot of other things in it besides wrestling. It was more of a variety show with wrestling as kind of the common denominator.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of us were wrestlers coming in. Maybe, I don't know, maybe one or two had any wrestling experience when they came to Glow. And of course, Jeannie ran with it. I mean, she's something else. She's been wrestling ever since, and she's made quite a name for herself and quite a career.
Absolutely. There's a few girls from Glow that ended up pursuing wrestling. I don't think you guys crossed paths, but Ivory ended up in WWE. She was in Glow for the first 2 seasons.
Yeah, we've spoken on the internet. Yeah.
There you go. That was kind of my next question. When you stayed in wrestling, and I know you did in another interview, you talked about a touring of Japan. How did they treat you guys? Did they treat you guys like you were real wrestlers, or did they not treat you like that?
That was actually the most respect I ever got as a wrestler when I went to Japan. So it was me, Tulsa, Beastie, and Matilda the Hun from Glow. Mm-hmm. And then it was Medusa Michelli and Leilani Kai. Mm. So we all went over there together and we did the opening night show for the Tokyo Arena in front of 25,000 people. So it was the very opening night for the Tokyo Arena. And we wrestled the Japanese girls. Now, the league that we wrestled, they don't exist anymore. And I want to say it was
all Japan women's, perhaps?
Yes, all Japan women's. Yes. So I have photos in my photo album of the women that I wrestled, and they were brutal. Like, they would hide razor blades underneath the mat in the corner. And then when they would get tossed in the corner, they would reach under the mat and nick their foreheads so that when you hit them, they would bleed all over the place.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And yeah, because you make a little nick in your forehead, you bleed all over the place, and it made for great theatrics. But I've got pictures of like the Japanese girls that I wrestled after the show, and they the one has blood all over her face, and she's giving the high five with like her thumbs and this big smile, and she's got blood all over the place. But yeah, the Japanese women, they are serious, brutal wrestlers, and they certainly gave us all a run for our money and challenged our skill level. And I feel like they brought me up a couple notches training with them before the show.
Very cool. Now, if you read your IMDb, it says that you left Glow under bad circumstances. You'd said that you the sexual harassment. Somebody thought you might be a lesbian. I don't really see much else about that except on the IMDb page. But what is that all about? That blurb.
I was involved in a relationship with dementia, Nancy Daly.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very well known in Glow. We didn't hide it. I mean, we were lovers. We were girlfriends. We lived together. We shared a bed. I mean, the entire thing knew about it. But Matt Simber was constantly trying to keep us apart from each other. You know, I think he's a little misogynistic, maybe a little jealous. I don't know. But even like when we would be on the tour bus, he wouldn't let us sit together. He would make either me or Nancy come and sit next to him in the front. He was always trying to keep us away from each other. And then one day we were doing Glow Live on the road, and we were staying at the Trump Castle in Atlantic City. Mm-hmm. And we had been out that day. It was it was January of 1980, I think 89, January of 89. Mm-hmm. And we had been out doing a bunch of talk shows and stuff. I think we did the Phil Donahue show and a bunch of other stuff. And so Nancy and I came back to the hotel and started to go in the revolving door, and we were stopped by security. Mm-hmm. And he pointed at some suitcases next to the front door. They were our suitcases. And I was like, what's going on? And they said, you've been fired. You're not allowed in the hotel, both of us.
Wow.
So then Johnny C came up and he says, Tiff, I need to talk to you. And I guess Matt Simber made Johnny C do the dirty work, and he told us that we had been fired and gave us our termination letters and our final checks. However, they did not give us plane tickets to get back to the West Coast. They let us figure that out for ourselves. In the middle of winter, it was snowing, it was icy. We had no way to get around. We didn't know where we were. We just knew we were at Trump Castle. They had brought us out there, and they fired us and sent us with our bags and said, pretty much figure out how you're going to get home.
Wow.
Yep.
That's kind of a crummy way to end.
Yeah, they did us really dirty. And they, what else can I say? That's just, it's inhuman. It's inhumane, like the way they did it. Two young girls, you know, in the middle of, winter out in front of Trump Castle after all we've given to Glow simply because we were lovers had no bearing on our work or anything else, you know. It's not like we were drunks or not showing up to practice or not doing our job.
That's absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that. I hope I didn't bring up something I shouldn't have. I asked you.
I've talked about it many times. I mean, I kept it secret for many years because I didn't want to shed any negative light on Nancy because I didn't know where she was at with her life because we haven't spoken in decades. But then I found out that she was openly talking about it. So I said, oh, well, if she's talking about it, then I'm going to talk about it. So about a year ago, I started talking about it, but I had actually kept it a secret all these years for her sake.
Very cool. And it seemed like there was always an attempt to recapture the magic of Glow. There was some of the original Glow girls would appear on things like Married with Children, and some of the original Glow girls would appear, and I think you were one of them on a video that Mrs. Stallone put out. And it seemed like there was always an attempt to recapture what you guys had there. I guess you just can't go home again, or was there just no financial backing to make it happen?
I really don't know. I know that Jackie had intended to turn Knockouts into a series, and we just did the pilot. Of course, I played Bambi, and I wrestled Valerie, who was MTV or Eileen Womack from Glow. It was actually a great match. It was a strap match. So we were tethered together by this long strap during the match, and I actually have it on my social media. But yeah, I know that Jackie was going to try to turn that into a series, and I really don't know why it didn't happen. Yeah. And then I was in like American Angels with Magnificent Mimi, which was a wrestling movie. And I've done a lot of mainstream stuff. So, yeah. And then I wrestled the Los Angeles circuit for a little while. I actually found some video of that on YouTube not too long ago, but now I can't figure out where I found it. So it's kind of lost out there somewhere. Somebody can find it. And I know it was in Maywood. We did a lot of wrestling in Maywood, which is like kind of South LA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a local circuit and I did a bunch of shows for them. But
Very cool. So you said
and then
yep.
I moved on to my next career.
That's right. And that's where we're going to next. So I was thinking about this the whole time if I would offend you when I said it, but I'll say it anyway. Usually when I ask somebody what it was like to work with Shawn Michaels, I'm talking about something completely different. But there you go. The next career was the adult film industry. And as you said, you were kind of the first. How did you end up in that world? And I guess the joke question would be, what's dirtier, pro wrestling or the adult film industry?
It depends on what kind of dirt we're talking about. It's pretty much kind of along the same lines. I was a fan of the movies, and I used to watch them with my boyfriend at the time, who was my oldest daughter. He's my oldest daughter's father. Mm-hmm. And I used to watch him thinking, God, I could do so much better. And so I started expressing interest and wanting to look into how to get into him. And he was like, oh, no, you're not. Not if we're going to be together. So we were together for like another 5 months, and then we split up. And I was like, cool, now I can do it. So cool. At the time, I was stripping at a club in Northridge, California called Ecstasy. And then on the weekends, I was going up to my old club that I danced at for years called the Mitchell Brothers O'Farrell Theater in San Francisco. And the O'Farrell is world famous. It's been there since the 60s. Mm-hmm. So I just started asking around the club that I was stripping at in Northridge if anybody knew anybody in the adult film industry. And one of the guys who was in management there said, yes, I actually know one of the agents. So he hooked me up with one of the two big Asians in porn. And because I had come from Blow the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, everybody wanted to book me. Mm. So I had no problem like shooting straight to the top. But what kept me there was the fact that I did raging hot sex scenes. Mm-hmm. I did great dialogue. I would show up on time. I was never drunk. I was never high because, I didn't do drugs. I didn't drink. As a matter of fact, I was robo buff and worked out like a fiend. And it shows in my early movies. I worked out heavily. And then after about a year and a half in the business, I was like, well, shoot, why just be an actress when I can produce as well? So I started my own production company and produced 7 of my own movies.
Wow.
All of which won awards and got accolades in industry publications. And I was highly discouraged from doing it because in those days, women didn't work behind the camera like that. They didn't direct, they didn't produce. There was like only 1 or 2. And, but that didn't deter me. Nothing, you tell me no, and that's an invitation.
I'm finding that out about you. You're I can understand why they'd want 3 different books because you've kind of lived 3 different lives in that sense.
And actually more than that, but those are my major careers. I mean, because I've also, I did radio for 4 years and I was an author several times over and I hold a U.S. patent. I speak French. I mean, there's just so many things that I do and so many worlds that I've been in, but we really just had to narrow it down to the 3.
All right. Well, after the adult films, the other thing you were involved with was a bounty hunter style show, which was popular in the 2000s for sure. Dog the Bounty Hunter certainly comes to mind, but yours was a different approach to it because you're a girl. And
yes, and the show is actually currently streaming on Wow Presents Plus. So they World of Wonder, which was the production company, digitized their catalog and uploaded my show to their platform. So now people can see it for the first time in 17 years. Wow,
very cool. All right. Well, I'm glad that's out there. So I guess how did you end up involved in such a dangerous line of work when it comes to being a bail bondsman?
Well, I had been described as many things, and one of them is a thrill seeker with a death wish. Other people will say she's the thinking man's porn star. I mean, these are things, these are ways that people describe me. So I kind of a long story, but I was a licensed private investigator in California, and how I got there is a whole nother story. You'd have to buy a book. It's just, it'd be too long. And so I am a lot of people who work as private investigators like to add bail bond agent to their repertoire. So when you're not busy as a PI, you can work as a bail agent. So I went to bail agent training. And when I was there was this very interesting gentleman, I use the term loosely, sitting behind me. And he was this huge Mexican guy with a shaved head, tatted up his neck, earrings, big muscles, looked like he had just come straight out of the freaking pen. And nobody was sitting near him. Like there was like space all around him. So me, just being me, turned around to him and I said, "You're an interesting looking guy. What's your story?" And put my elbows on the table, ready to hear what he had to say. And he says, "I'm a bounty hunter." I said, "Bounty hunter? That's very interesting." I said, "I'm actually here to add bail bond agent to my repertoire, but I'd actually considered also adding bounty hunter, because if you're going to write the bonds and get the people out of jail, you might as well be able to go retrieve them when they don't show up to court." And he just looked at me funny, like, because, I'm this blonde, busty, blue-eyed little thing. And I'm like, "Yeah, I think I want to be a bounty hunter too." And he kind of looked at me funny and he says, he's kind of scratching his chin a little bit. He goes, "My boss might be interested in hiring you because you could get into places and situations that none of us can, because nobody would suspect you." So he hooked me up with his boss, who was he's a very renowned bounty hunter. His name is Zeke Unger. Zeke actually had his own TV show for a season 2. And Zeke works out of the Van Nuys Airport, out of a hangar out there, and he owns World Executive Protection Group. So he introduced me to Zeke, and Zeke decided he was going to give me a shot because he agreed with my gangbanger-looking friend, Loro Jimenez. So he brought me on board, and I started breaking cases that his other bounty hunters had been unable to break. And I started being able, bringing people into custody that they had been searching for a long time. And he was very pleased with my performance. So he wanted to train me to do executive protection. Well, his business partner, who owned 51% of the company, Zeke owned 49%, was a former LA County Sheriff's deputy, a female. And she somehow found out that I used to be a porn star and made Zeke fire me. He did not want to fire me. As a matter of fact, we talk on Facebook and our conversations are public. You can very clearly see that, he and I are still friends. But yeah, he made her fire me. And so shortly thereafter, my husband and my kids and I packed it up and moved to Arizona. And I was like, fuck this. I'm just going to start my own gig like I always do. So I started my own bail agency. And when you have a bail bonds license in Arizona, you can also bounty hunt. You could do it for your own agency or other agencies. Wow. So I started bounty hunting, not just for my own agency, but for other agencies in the area as well, and got a stellar reputation for pretty much 100% arrest rate. And I was breaking cases again in Arizona that the other bounty hunters had been unable to break. And so then Hollywood came knocking because they heard that this former porn star was a bounty hunter, and that's kind of an interesting story. So they started calling my agent and talking about doing a reality show, and we ended up settling on World of Wonder because there was a number of production companies that wanted to do it. But we ended up settling on World of Wonder, and World of Wonder sold the rights to the We Channel, who aired the show the first couple of times. And then no season 2 ever happened because the show's sponsors did not like the fact that I was a former porn star. They felt that it wasn't good for their family-friendly image for their products. I think one of the sponsors was 7-Up or PepsiCo or one of them. And they didn't like it. and refused to renew the show.
Wow. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you mentioned that the Glow fame led you to be more desirable in the world of adult films. And then the world of adult films obviously made a lot of people notice you a lot more, maybe even more than in Glow. But then it also kind of came back to bite you a little bit, because people are a little, I don't want to say prudish, but they didn't like certain aspects about everything that comes along with that. So it's interesting how one thing leads to another, but also opens some doors and closes others.
Oh, there's most certainly a double standard, especially for the females. Not so much anymore, but I lost a lot of work back then because of my prior involvement with adult films. And what's interesting is now World of Wonder has, they are now streaming the show on their platform, and they do not shy away from the fact that I'm not a former porn star now. I am now a current porn star because I am back in the industry.
You are back in the industry. That's what I was going to talk to you about. We were just talking beforehand about OnlyFans, and that's kind of how you're back in there, I guess, right?
Just for now, yeah. I'm not going to book any professional shoots until after AVN in January. I have some things that I have to do before then, but it is my intention when I go to the big convention in January that I will book my big return, or I will self-produce. I'm more inclined to self-produce because that way I can retain the rights, do what I want with it. Why give my big comeback after, no pun intended, of course, why give my big comeback to Brazzers or Score Group or Milfy or any of those for a couple $1,000s when I can produce it myself and retain the rights and exploit it how I want to and do what I want with it. So I'm kind of on the fence because they have the publicity machine that I don't, but I don't know. It's really just going to depend on what offers are made in January. And at that point, I will decide if I'm going to make my big comeback self-produced or if I'm going to do it for one of the big companies. I'm not quite sure yet.
What do you think of the women's wrestling today? And there is an OnlyFans question I'm going to ask after that, but women's wrestling today, they work like the guys do a lot of the times, and it's a lot different than it was, not just in Glow, but on the mainstream WWF, WCW, all that kind of stuff. Women's wrestling is a lot different now. What do you think of what the girls do today, and do you watch any of it?
I do watch some of it. And a few of the wrestlers are my friends. Natalia Markova, is a friend of mine. I was her manager in Florida when I did my big comeback to wrestling a few weeks ago. First time anybody had seen me anywhere near a wrestling ring in 35 years. So, and I met Teal Piper there, and she was amazing. And I've watched some of the women's wrestling on TV, and I know that a lot of them will never admit this, but they really have Glow to thank, because we brought the glamour and the glitz that was missing. Women's wrestling became like before Glow was around, women's wrestling was, and I don't mean to say this to piss anybody off, but the women were not glamorous. They looked like Mack trucks. They looked like bulldogs. There was nothing stylish about them. And Glow combined all those elements. Even though we weren't serious wrestlers, it really brought a lot of sexy and glamour and glitz and style to the wrestling ring. First time that had ever been done. And I think that these women wrestlers today really have the pioneering women of Glow to thank for that.
I would agree. And you mentioned Natalia Markova. Just 2 weeks ago, she was out here in Arizona, and stunningly gorgeous woman, as well as a great wrestler.
I was supposed to be there. I was supposed to be there to be her manager, but unfortunately, Dom, her, the guy that runs the operation,
Dom Vitale, yes.
Yeah, but by the time I was able to get a hold of him and offered to be her manager because she really wanted me there, he said it was too late for him to work me in, but that he wanted to work me into future shows.
Hopefully that's the case, because like I said, it was a great show. It was it had almost 2,000 people there, which
that's what I heard.
For an independent show in Arizona. When I'm out here in Arizona as well. It's pretty close to where I live. When I moved out here in 2000, there was no wrestling, nothing. And if there was a occasional independent show, you'd see maybe 50 people in the crowd. So to see a WWE or AEW show come to town and draw 2,000 people. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I saw the pictures on social media and I was so happy for them. I was so happy for Dom, so happy for Natalia, everybody that put into the show. Because like up here where I live in the Prescott area. Fallon Gray is a good friend of mine. And I went to one of her local shows and there might have been like 100, 150 people at the show here in Prescott Valley. And, you know, there is a venue up here and they do wrestling shows up here, but the turnout is never great. But the people who do turn out are really supportive hardcore fans and they're really into it. So
very cool.
They make up for the lack of numbers. Do you know Fallon?
I don't know. Fallon Henley?
No, Fallon Gray. She's a women's wrestler right here from Arizona. She's from Tucson and she's phenomenal.
I'm going to have to do some research because I feel a little embarrassed that I don't know her. No,
it's FALLYNGREY, Fallon Gray, and she is an amazing wrestler.
Absolutely, I'll look into her, and maybe she'll be one of my future interviews if she'll grace me with her presence. I did want to take it just one more question back to the OnlyFans type of thing. I'm going to be honest with you. It's a little bit of a male thing that I wanted to ask you about. It's a weird dichotomy where
you don't need to preface it, just let it all hang out, baby.
All right, sure. So I'll say it this way. Women want to be taken seriously as athletes. They want to be seen as wrestlers. They want to be taken as seriously as a man. And to some extent, they maybe don't want us to admit that we're looking where we're looking when we're looking there. But then they have an OnlyFans, or then they have a brand army, or whatever the case might be, that is basically them selling sexy pictures of themselves to the same audience. That is it a weird, you used the word double standard earlier, but is it a weird double standard that we don't know how to act? Us guys don't know how to behave anymore, because obviously we're going to notice an attractive woman whether she wants us to or not. But then again, she's also wanting us to notice that when she's on the OnlyFans side of things.
I got to tell you, I have this conversation with my male friends all the time. I really feel so bad for guys these days. There are so many mixed signals for men, and now you got the whole Me Too crowd chiming in. And guys just don't know what to think or what to do when it comes to women. It's not like the old days where there were clear lines. You know, the man courted the woman, the lines are all blurred these days, and guys are confused as fuck, and I do not blame them one little bit. And to boot, you know, now guys are dealing with not only that, but the majority of women who are in like the dateable range, like from like 20 to 40. It's all look at me, look at me, look at me, and the big kissy lips and the Instagram face, and they're very very self-absorbed, materialistic, and women are really psycho these days. I feel really bad for my guy friends. I really do. It's no wonder that the younger generations are going after us older women who have our shit together, and you know, we don't play these games. We're outspoken. We know what we want. We don't like. There's no blurred lines with us. We're very direct. And I was telling you earlier, my boyfriend is 24 and I'm 59.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, 35 years.
There you go.
But
I topped out at 16, by the way. My one of my first girlfriends was 39 when I was 20, whatever the math would be, 23. So I definitely had that, and my wife is 8 years older than me. So there you go. There's the fact there too. Yeah, that is the case, and it is partially for what you said. A lot of them are very complicated. Look but don't look. It's you don't know what to do. If you're a guy, you kind of feel like you need a pen and paper and a contract signed if you're going to go on a date. Otherwise, you'll get in trouble for it.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so glad that I don't have those things swinging between my legs, because I would hate to be a guy these days. I really feel terribly for guys.
Very cool.
And then you have a culture that emasculates them as well. It's like it's not okay to be a man's man anymore. You know, you got all these manscaping and metrosexuals, and you got mixed messages when it comes to what it means to be a man these days as well. And it's like popular culture has made it not okay for men to be men.
Right. We don't have to be construction workers and whistling at everybody that walks by, but there is a level of you're going to notice if there's an attractive woman that walks by, and now you kind of feel like if you get caught looking, you can be canceled from public life. And it's a tough.
Oh, that word, canceled. That's so funny you should say that, because there's sometimes I will say things to my boyfriend. He'll say, "Oh, you shouldn't say that too loud. You'll get canceled." I go, at age 59, with everything I've done in my life, do you really think I give a rat's fucking ass?
Very cool. Well,
I have earned the right to say say what I want to say and be who I want to be. And if you don't like it, there's the fucking door, bitch.
I love it. That's the greatest attitude. That's an Arizona attitude. That's how we're. All right. So before I let you go, you mentioned that you have the OnlyFans. You mentioned that you have other links. Where can people catch up with you and find Tiffany Mellon, Tiffany Million, however you want to be known?
Well, all of my links are on my link tree. So I don't know if you're going to have a visual for this interview or not.
We will. Yes.
Okay. So it's, I don't know if Linktree is, I don't know how they spell it, but it's Linktree/Tiff Million, TYFF Million. So I can text it to you, my link, but that's where you can find all of my links.
Very cool. And I will definitely get that out there. And I want to thank you for spending as much time as you have. I didn't intend to keep you for so long, but I'm glad you stuck with me. It was definitely an interesting conversation, and I appreciate you taking the time to do it with me.
Oh, my absolute pleasure.
All right. Before I let you go, do you mind if I ask for a radio ID, a station ID, just saying this is Tiffany Mellon and you're listening to the Wrestling Epicenter?
This is Tiffany Mellon, otherwise known as Tiffany Million, and you are listening to the Wrestling Epicenter.